introduce Eric.
Thanks, Mike.
Yes, and that's his real name. Now, a couple of you think I'm making up names because some of you know that my best friend and his wife is named Walt and Sheila. And I'm not making, that's actually Walt and Sheila's name. And, we'll use Eric for Eric, though. So, Eric, a man who needs no introduction, nor does he want one.
I'm taking this home. I earned this.
Oh, sorry. This whole program is, especially in the case of Huron County. I'm a farm kid.
Sorry, Eric. I think we know well. We've met each other about like all for an hour and a half.
Yeah, this is our
second time.
Yeah.
That's why he's so close.
I don't know how to do this there, Bri.
So,
it clips.
yeah.
Jeez.
So I'm a farm kid. I'm from Eastern Seneca County. I'm from Eastern Seneca County. I live in Western Huron County. In both cases, it's family ground that goes back at least 5 generations as far as we trace it. So between my parents and my wife and me, we own a little bit of farm ground on both sides of the line here. So we were approached in Eastern Seneca County. We were approached in about 2007 or 2008, mainly by GE Green Energy. And we talked to them, listened to what they had to say. I always like to add that the fellow who came out, I refer to him as their pimp. The fellow who came out was a lawyer. He drove out in a Hummer, pitching all this green energy. So he brought in a GE Green Energy expert, and saving you from all the detail there, we talked about what it costs. This young man introduced what it costs to put up a windmill, what it returns in its lifetime. And those numbers are almost equal. So my question to him was, Jack Welch wrote books about how to make money. He didn't write any books to talk about how to break even. So why on earth would GE talk about making zero? And the response was, I said, where's the profit? This has to be business. Where's the profit? The answer was the federal payout. And so 3 times I asked him, what if it goes away? The response was, it won't. And I said, that's not a good business model. That doesn't make sense. How can this possibly work? Well, about the same time, we were running a line extension with Ohio Edison, extending a 3-phase power line about 3.9 miles. And so I interacted with some of their engineers. The engineers bristled when I asked them, why isn't my electricity supplier bringing these spinny things, 1 per 10 acres, and offering it to me? The answer was, because they don't make any money. And we're a regulated monopoly. We have to make money. By Ohio Revised Code, we file a tariff with the state of Ohio, and we have to make a profit. And we have to charge for certain things. And more importantly, these engineers who came in from Akron said, and we have to buy this electricity from the green energy company. And that electricity is not necessarily green, produced in a green manner. It's electricity from a green energy company. So these engineers from Akron who are bristling saying, and we have to buy that electricity at a premium over what it costs us to produce electricity on our own. And it's by a law that they have to do this. And they said, by the way, remember when you get your bill, when we run this line to your location, you're going to see a green energy fee. And everybody gets a green energy fee because we have to make up that cost. So that's the answer. We're all paying for it. Every one of us is paying for these to go up. So I'm a capitalist. If you want to put something on your property, if you want to park your cars on your property and let them rot on old tires, I don't care. It may not be my speed, but it doesn't matter to me. You do what you want. I respect that. You live however you prefer. I have no issue with it. Now, when you start putting a wealth transfer tower up, or when Apex starts putting a wealth transfer tower up, I am an involuntary partner in this.
because I'm paying electricity, I'm paying the green energy fee, and every one of us here is a partner in that, involuntarily. So Huron County is now going through what I refer to as the greatest transfer of wealth out of Huron County in the history of Huron County, possibly forever from Huron County. Because start looking at all the things that go into this. The stone is being hauled by a local company. That's about it. Unless one of these workers who came from Detroit, unless one of the blacktop trucks that came from Sandusky County outside the area, unless these construction workers go down to the local bar and buy a sandwich, there's no money coming back into my county. Unless we look at the little bit of property tax, because remember, our county negotiated a low, consistent rate to pay in property tax. Instead of following the value of that wealth transfer tower, which starts at some high number and works its way down to zero, then it gets rebuilt, goes back up. That would be, they would multiply by that number, a percentage by that value, and that's the property tax number. Instead, the county negotiated a flat rate with Apex because the county got scared. Apex said, and Walt explained this to me, Apex said, if you tax us, if you don't agree to this low rate, this low consistent rate, we will dispute every tax valuation on every wealth transfer tower, they call them windmills, and on every single year. So guess what? Nobody ever gets their tax money. So the county says, well, crap, we don't want to do that. We need our tax money because we're dreaming up new programs, we're dreaming up new permanent expenses, and we want to have all these new programs. We're sending out goldfish to everybody under 11 years old. We're painting all the fire hydrants blue, and we have all these people we're going to hire, and we got to have that money. And so they crapped their pants and said, okay, we'll agree to that. So what happens is we have people here who are coming in saying, sign a lease, sign a lease, sign a lease, sign a lease, sign a lease. All your neighbors are doing it, and if you don't sign it, they're going to get your money. It's only one pie, and we can't slice it any more than, we can't get any more pie. It's only one pie. And that's not true. I've seen leases, and I'm telling you, I have seen them, I have had them pushed in front of me. The standard lease in our part of the Midwest pays a variable rate based on whether the windmill goes around or not, whether there's a driveway or not, how big the tower is, etc. But there's something like 2 or 2.5 pages of description of how the landowner is going to get paid. There's verbiage in there that's really complicated, but it's a unilaterally written agreement. So they've written it to make sure, and it's typical business, that's how it is. They've written it to make sure that they exist and they make money on this. So ultimately, the average payout for our part, our area of the Midwest, they would pay about $15,000 to $18,000 a year. Now those leases tend to be around $30,000, maybe $40,000 a year. But remember, that landowner is a partner in the production of electricity by this wealth transfer tower. And so if it doesn't go around, that payout is low. If it goes around, it's a little bit better. But ultimately, it's all dependent on whether that thing works or not. Now, we have been able to negotiate with them on every single point except one. We got them to offer to pay $103,000 per year guaranteed payout per wealth transfer tower. So what does that tell us? That tells us that everybody who signed that standard agreement got screwed. Every single person who signed that agreement got screwed. And I'll tell you why. Because most of those people never ever went out and said, I don't understand this. I need to take it to an attorney. Most of those agreements were signed on a kitchen table, or they were signed on the hood of a pickup, our neighbor likes to say. They were signed over a ham sandwich at the neighbor's shop, and so because it's pressure, pressure. Sign here, sign here, sign here. Because if you don't, your neighbor's going to get your money. Don't sign anything you don't understand. And if you don't understand it, take it to an attorney and have your attorney look at it from your perspective and say, hang on, let's change these points. Because as I said, they would negotiate on every point in this agreement except one. That one point, and it happened twice. We got them to the edge. Now, whether or not we would sign that agreement, you can make that assumption based on my tone, I suppose. But when we got them to the very edge, the one point they would not negotiate on was the teardown. Because I said to the GE guy, the little punk, what I said to the GE guy was, I need to be able to take ownership of this thing. If the company is defunct or the spinny thing doesn't go around, for whatever reason, it's not producing what we anticipate it to be producing. And so I need to be able to take ownership of that so I can tear it down. The response was, no way, we won't do that. Now, why is that? Because the normal operation in business is, and attorneys do this for anyone in business, we need an open end. We need to be able to walk away from this. If things go to heck, we need to be able to walk away from this. So the attorney leaves that door open and says, no, we aren't going to negotiate on the teardown. We will not transfer it to you. We will not let you touch it. No way. Because my theory is, and I'm sure it's true, they want to be able to walk away from it. Then what happens? It becomes a public works project. So Casey then comes about and says, hey, everybody, we need a levy. We have to pass a levy here because we need to have a public works project to tear these things down because the company is gone. We can't find them. They don't answer the phone. We send a pigeon died. We can't get hold of them. So ultimately, the county comes back and says, hey, everybody, we need some more money. All that money you paid in the green energy fee to make these things go up, we need some more. Now we need to make them go back down again. It's been 50, however many years. They're no good anymore. They've run their span, and now we need to get rid of them. And as Sheila pointed out, sitting here, no, they don't dig them out of the ground. What they do is they go down a certain number of feet and grind the concrete off, and then they bring topsoil, I don't know, from the moon. I don't know where they're going to get all the topsoil, but they're going to cover it up with topsoil. So the greatest transfer of wealth in the history of Huron County, more than 50% of the materials that go into these things come from China. The labor to put these things up comes from Detroit, in our experience, that comes from Detroit. We had a local construction company that wanted to get involved in these things. They were really excited about it, and they're saying, yeah, we want the concrete work. This is going to be great. There are yards and yards and yards of concrete work here. And guess what? They brought their own batch plant in, and they're hauling concrete with their own trucks. That's not local. The only thing that's local about that is the stone. So our county gets a little bit of money, our landlords get a little bit of money, our township roads get beaten to heck and back. They say they're going to fix them, whatever. We haven't seen it yet, but we're just into this project a little ways. But our township trustees are saying, we don't know what to do. We are overwhelmed with what's going on. The county engineer told me, I'm overwhelmed. My office is overwhelmed. I have to hire 2 more people to try to keep up with this. And they're not doing what they said they're going to do. No kidding. That document says they can do whatever they need to do to make this work. So they've come in, they've dug holes, they've run across the roads with whatever machinery. They have brand new semi-trailers. I saw 3 stacks of 3 trailers each, unloaded several weeks ago, whatever it was. Their equipment is all new. They don't even have the paint worn off the tracks. They don't have the paint worn off the blades, and after about a month of use, they're starting to get the paint worn off the blades of the new bulldozers. John Deere's getting paid. The porta-pot people are getting paid. The porta-pots are coming from the big rental companies. Everything about this is coming from out of state. The forms are coming from out of state. Everything comes from somewhere else, and all that money coming out of all the green energy fees coming out of our pockets, all of our money is going somewhere else, unless they bought that ham sandwich at the local tavern, and I haven't seen one yet. You know, I've cautioned, I know the pickups, there are white ones and there are gray ones, and they're brand new. It's fantastic. I've cautioned our youngest, our 14-year-old, we don't let him run equipment up and down the road certain times of the day because it's just too doggone dangerous. Even though he's on local 1-lane roads, his mom and I are scared to death he's going to get hit. But that's what happens. So if you like these things, that's fine. If you don't like these things, that's fine too. But make sure you read what you're signing. So as Marie pointed out, there are clauses, there's verbiage in there. There are people with suits sitting in Virginia who are thinking up all kinds of new ways because they have to protect their business. This business can't survive without our money. We are involuntary partners in this whole process. We are involuntary partners in the production of green energy. And so we have to be very careful when we say, yeah, I'll sign that, without reading all of that verbiage in there. There is stuff in there that will make your hair stand up. And ultimately, we have example after example after example of neighbors who are saying, well, they never said they're going to do that. That guy told us 18 years ago. And he said he was going to fix the tile. Yeah, no kidding. They ran a 100,000-pound crane across the tile. What do you think that did? And they're going to fix it, and it's always the same. We're going to return it to the previous condition. Now, wait a minute. How long you been here? Yeah, you've been here since March or February, March, whenever it was just dry enough they could get across it. I've been here my whole life. My parents have been here their whole lives. We know what it's supposed to look like, and that ain't it. And they're going to go, yeah, but it says right here, and we have drone pictures, don't you worry. So there's a lot more to this. And so if you want to send the money to China, if you want to send the money to Detroit, if you want to send the money to John Deere, wherever John Deere is putting its money, if you want to send the money to wherever outside the community, sign up. Sign that document. Let them go after it. It is very, very well planned. It is perfectly choreographed. It is, the way that they bring this thing in is very, very well organized. And where it starts is right here. They come in, they knock on your door, and they make sure that they use every tactic possible to get you to sign that contract without going to an attorney and discussing what's going on. Your great-grandkids will really appreciate it if you take that to an attorney and have them read it before you sign it. So one quick example, we have a local attorney. He was in business for, 40 years or 50 years or something. And Tom mentioned that he had a pair of clients who came in who inherited some farm ground from their parents. And they brought the contract in. Now, we had at least a dozen different windmill operations that came in pestering us with the opportunity to sign the leases. Ultimately, it was all rolled up into Apex. But the agreements are all very similar. So the agreement was brought into the attorney. The attorney said, I've read this, and I don't know how you're going to get paid. I can't recommend signing it or not signing it. I cannot figure out how you're going to get paid. 2 pages, 2.5 pages, whatever it is. Guess what? They signed it anyway. But if the attorney can't read it, who am I to say I know better? So that's my overview. The economics of this don't make sense. It's nothing but a wealth transfer. And I use Walden Sheila as an example. So they're paying more in their electricity. They're retired. So they're paying more for their electricity involuntarily. They have no choice except to go off the grid, I guess. But ultimately, they're paying more for their electricity in their retirement just because our elected officials decided this is a great thing. And so how are we going to help them in their retirement? Nobody's helping them. I don't have anybody at the county level or the state level or the township level saying, hang on, we have this project here and it's so great, it's bringing in so much money, we are going to give a tax abatement to all of our retirees. We're going to give them free electricity because these wealth transfer towers are going around, they're just fabulous. No, we're not doing that. We're saying, thanks a lot, and by the way, you're going to pay more for your electricity for the rest of your lives. We really appreciate it. Where did your money go? Not here. Except for the ham sandwich, not here. So just remember where that money is going. Kevin?
Does anyone have any questions for Eric? Sure, right here.
Back to my original question. Who funds Apex? Oh, I'm sorry.
I know
It's owned by an investment group of some sort.
Aries Management, Aries Capital Management, or Wealth
Yeah.
Management?
And
Who's that? Aries Management?
Aries,
A-R-E-S.
yeah, Aries Wealth Management, Aries Capital Management, something like that. So this thing is not going to stand as a green energy company forever, because ultimately I'm being told over and over, wind and solar in Ohio is dead. So this whole thing is just, this is surprising to me. We thought we were the last ones, but the wind and solar business won't stand, and it can't stand. There's no prediction into the future by any scientist, any electrical super duper person. Nobody can predict a point in the future when this thing is sustainable, when this type of electricity generation is sustainable. So my contention is Apex is going to morph into something, or it's going to disappear, something like that. Apex has a history of the construction of these projects and then moving on to the next one. Correct. They will disappear. Another company might take it, and it's typical life of a business, especially a business that's fading. It gets sold over and over as the profit margin diminishes. And in this case, as the money coming from the federal government and the state government diminishes, ultimately, this thing keeps getting sold and then eventually goes away. Without federal money, state money, and your green energy fees, the whole company doesn't exist. And GE guy told me that, flat out.
We went through that with the oil and gas industry here in Asheville County many years ago.
That's correct. That's correct.
They all bellied up and disappeared.
Correct. Our area had gas leases, oil leases, back in the 50s. They came around and had signed gas and oil leases, and almost all of them didn't occur, at least in our area, didn't occur. I think that's the mentality here. I think we all thought, or my neighbors all thought, it won't happen, it won't happen.
On our farm, the state of Ohio means Medicaid or having those roads shut down.
That's right. I have seen that. Yes. And there are federal grants to close those wells as well. Yes.
I know people are leaving, so I just want to thank each and every one of you guys for coming. I never thought this day would come.
I have closing remarks, so
Okay,
I'll
hold
leave
on.
after her.
But thank you very much.
I don't know. Is Eric done? Does anyone else have a question for Eric? Sure, right here.
The problem is up here in this area, you don't have any attorneys that knows how to look at these types of problems.
That's okay. You take it to an attorney. The attorney, not all of them, but an attorney should stand up and say, I'm not an expert in this. You need to take it to so and so. Ask them for a referral.
They don't know any referrals. I had that problem with
There are, you don't have to have one within 50 miles of here. There are attorneys out there. Reach out to Kevin, reach out to Marie, and ask them. Pardon me?
people in Columbus for his attorney would not show up to Asheville.
No, Columbus is too expensive. We need somebody who's a little more used to our bucolic way of life. But there are attorneys out there.
So how come we little people have some, how come we don't know?
Listen. Okay, let me just point.
That's politics.
Let me make a
That's the
point
way
here.
it is.
I know.
In many cases, we do not elect our best thinkers. That's all there is to it. I agree.
If you guys really want a treat, take a day off or get a whatever. Drive to Columbus and spend some time at the General Assembly.
Yeah.
You will be amazed. You'll come out of there wanting to take a shower.